Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everybody. Sorry for a bit of a delay. Welcome to WordStream's webinar in partnership with LegitScript. Get started and start optimizing online. Learn how addiction treatment facilities can thrive in paid advertising. My name is Maggie, and I'm here to kick things off before passing it off to our experts from both WordStream and LegitScript. We are super excited to be partnering with LegitScript to give you guys all the information on how you can certify your business to advertise online, as well as how to optimize those online campaigns to create more business. A quick logistics slides before we get going. This webinar is being recorded and you will be emailed a recording along with the slides within 48 hours after we end today's session. Also, please submit your questions throughout the webinar. We want this to be as beneficial as possible, so submit your questions, any questions that come up that you might have for our experts, and we're going to do our best to get to as many as we can at the end. To get started, I wanted to tell you all a little bit about WordStream. Many of you might know us from our free tools, our awesome content, or our amazing blog. We are premier partners of Google, Bing, and Facebook, and we offer a software here at WordStream called WordStream Advisor, which helps businesses succeed in the landscape of online advertising all in one place. WordStream Advisor makes online advertising with Google, Bing, and Facebook super simple. It helps to increase your ROI, gives you custom reports, and provides you with tons of features to save you time by simplifying your online efforts. If you want to know more about how we can help you, definitely head to our website. As you get familiar with WordStream, please connect with us, be our friend. Find us on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube. You can learn, you can interact with WordStream customers and see some other awesome content. So without further ado, I will pass things off to our presenters from LegitScript.
Thank you. So first, I want to talk a little bit about LegitScript's mission. So our mission here at LegitScript is to make the internet and payment ecosystems safer and more transparent now and for the future generations. So now I'm going to introduce who we have presenting with us today. So we have Caitlin Clark and Leslie Schultz with LegitScript. I'm Caitlin Clark, and I'm the Assistant Director of Operations for the certification programs at LegitScript. I'm nationally certified as an addictions counselor, and I've been working in the field of addiction treatment and mental health for over 10 years. Leslie Schultz is the program manager for LegitScript's drug and alcohol addiction treatment certification program, and she oversees the day-to-day operations of the analyst team. Leslie has prior experience in the human services field working with disadvantaged populations. LegitScript performs both certification and monitoring, which are kind of like two sides of the same coin. We certify merchants who are operating in compliance, and we monitor internet and payment ecosystems for merchants who are operating out of compliance, particularly ones operating with blatant disregard for the law and consumer safety. As you can see here, we monitor many different high-risk areas, including areas that involve certification. We have CBD certification for CBD product manufacturers and online merchants, healthcare certification for pharmacies and telemedicine providers, supplement website certification, and of course, drug and alcohol addiction treatment certification for addiction treatment providers. LegitScript also monitors outside of the healthcare and addiction treatment space, including gambling, fraud, intellectual property infringement, content that advocates for hate or violence, and a whole lot more. All of this ancillary experience is important because we're the experts in high-risk industries, including drug and alcohol addiction treatment. I'll now go through some commonly asked questions that we've received and give some answers and insight into what LegitScript does and why our services are so important. First of all, we want to take a step back and look broadly at the issue of trust on the internet, which is a pervasive problem. Why is trust so crucial in the online space? Customers believe there's a greater risk of being taken advantage of online where identities and motives are easily hidden. These fears are not unfounded. The Federal Trade Commission and other regulatory agencies are consistently cracking down on a variety of online businesses whose primary purpose is to deceive and defraud customers. Most addiction treatment providers would not consider themselves e-commerce companies, but if you're operating on the internet, it's important to understand that prospective patients and their families are viewing you through the lens of an online business. For that reason, building trust is paramount. A 2014 study on the issue of trust in online commerce concluded that trust has been found to be a key predictor for customer retention due to its crucial ability to promote risk-taking behavior in the case of uncertainty, interdependence, and fear of opportunism. People are wary to engage online with unproven entities, and with good reason. Trust is important, but there are many ways to build trust online. So why use certification? Simply put, certification from a trusted third party is one of the fastest, easiest ways to establish trust. Other methods may also be effective, but they can take a great deal of time and investment to nurture a relationship. When patients or their families have a lack of information about a business or service, a third-party recommendation can be a quick way to bridge the trust gap. A 2017 study on the value of certifications, or trust marks, for building trust online found that trust marks can increase trust, especially on small and medium enterprises where their brands are not well known. Most addiction treatment providers would fall within the small and medium business categories. Furthermore, the study said if an institution is displaying the e-commerce trust mark on their website, we can expect that the institution has the integrity to respect the law, good business behavior, and other standards. Trust marks can include certification, accreditation, and other kinds of industry or regulatory approval. So why use LegitScript for certification? A few reasons. First, LegitScript is the leading third-party certifier of high-risk industries. Second, LegitScript is trusted, used, recognized, or recommended by Visa, MasterCard, Google, Facebook, Amazon, and more. And perhaps most important, LegitScript provides the only certification service for drug and alcohol addiction treatment providers that is relied on by Google, Bing, and Facebook to vet advertisers for eligibility. For addiction treatment providers who want to advertise on any of these platforms, they must be LegitScript certified. Our friends at WordStream will talk a bit more about the value of advertising later in this webinar. So finally, we get many questions about why an addiction treatment provider should get certified by LegitScript when they're already accredited by Joint Commission, CARF, and other accrediting bodies. That's a great question because certification and accreditation accomplish two different objectives, so they actually build on each other and offer a premium trust experience. As many of you will know, accreditation bodies look in depth at issues involving treatment practices. LegitScript looks at broader issues such as business affiliations and marketing practices. In this way, the two trust brands complement each other by showing that both internal and external practices are compliant. Now I'll hand things over to Leslie so she can talk a bit more in depth about our drug and alcohol addiction treatment certification program.
To provide an idea of the reach of our certification program, to date, LegitScript has certified a total of 863 drug and alcohol addiction treatment merchants, totaling a combined 1,939 unique treatment facilities across the United States. For an illustration of how our certification program has helped impact the online advertising space, since the time LegitScript began serving drug and alcohol addiction treatment providers and Google began requiring LegitScript certification as a condition of advertising in this space, we've seen a significant reduction, 99.3%, in problematic desktop ads. This has benefits to the safety of the public, since users are far less likely to be exposed to misleading or harmful content, and it also benefits certified treatment providers, providing them a path forward for their Google Ads campaigns and allowing them to stand out from the pack. With the next slide, we'll look at some areas we focus on when reviewing applications for our drug and alcohol addiction treatment certification program. As part of LegitScript's certification evaluation, our expert analysts assess a variety of areas. For example, we require an applicant's domain name to be accurately and transparently registered, not privacy protected, and the applicant must disclose all domain names and websites under its control as part of the application process. The applicant's business practices must not deceive or defraud the public in any way, and its website or websites must also clearly and transparently disclose the nature of services offered and where these services are provided. We assess overall compliance with applicable laws and regulations, and an applicant must provide LegitScript with its program's written policies and procedures, as well as information on its treatment staff's and leadership's qualifications and background, and its affiliated businesses. For a more comprehensive look at LegitScript's 19 certification standards for providers of drug and alcohol addiction treatment, you can follow the link here on this slide. Now I'd like to share with you a quick overview of some of the compliance issues we've seen since the start of the program. We've seen and addressed numerous directories promoting third-party treatment providers not under the common ownership or control of the website operator. These directories may contain inaccurate or misleading information and might not provide the unbiased perspective a prospective patient or their family deserves. Some call centers and their workers are also often incentivized to refer vulnerable callers to the highest bidder with per caller or per patient payments, rather than assessing what program would provide the best clinical fit. We've also observed marketing with misleading claims about treatment outcomes, such as success rates that are not backed up by data or clearly defined. Treatment programs' websites might lack a privacy policy compliant with HIPAA or other health information regulations, or they might not disclose to whom and where patients are being referred, or the types of treatment services offered. External links to unverified and unvetted treatment providers are also an issue in the online advertising space and something we assess for during our compliance reviews. Drug and alcohol addiction treatment is an industry under constant development. Many states are actively updating and strengthening their regulations due to the impact of the opioid epidemic and increased public attention in this area. Both the federal government and states have launched task forces and investigations and have devoted significant public resources to addressing these problems and bringing more of the industry under the oversight of regulators. For example, Orange County in California brought criminal charges against treatment providers for allegedly conspiring in the unauthorized practice of medicine, insurance fraud, and offering rebates for referral. The state of California also recently passed legislation addressing the offering of incentives and financial assistance to patients. The state of Utah established state licensing for recovery residences. And in Florida, the investigations of a multi-agency task force have led to multiple prosecutions related to fraudulent urine drug testing schemes. LegitScript monitors regulatory and legal developments on an ongoing basis, including actions taken against non-compliant treatment providers. So, how can you help? If you observe violations of LegitScript certification standards, you may submit this information via legitscript.com using our Report an Addiction Treatment Facility feature. This information will be reviewed by our analyst team, and we may contact you for further information or documentation if needed. We appreciate the members of the public who have submitted concerns to this form already. It's an important part of our process, and we take reports of abuse seriously. Hopefully, Caitlin and I offered you all some insight into why building trust in the online space is so important and why certification as a trust mark is so valuable. We believe LegitScript will help you build trust by gaining approval from a reputable third party and will help you stand out in an extremely competitive industry. But most importantly, LegitScript certification helps you unlock your advertising potential on Google, Facebook, and Bing. You may be wondering, why should I advertise online? And what are the best practices to maximize my advertising efforts? For that, we'll pass it over to our friends at WordStream.
Great, thanks Leslie and Caitlin. Hi, this is Emily True. I am a sales engineer at WordStream, specifically on the managed services team, and I'll be co-presenting with Chris Panetta today on some of the best practices for these platforms, specifically in the addiction treatment space, and some things to avoid. A little bit more about me. I actually used to use the WordStream software in my previous job, and now I work for WordStream. And really, PPC is occupying a lot of my headspace. I eat, sleep, and breathe paid advertising, and I think about it oftentimes a lot outside of work, including in my dreams sometimes. I graduated from UMass Amherst back in 2015, and when I'm not thinking about PPC, delivering presentations, or conducting account audits, I'm actually an avid PC gamer. And now I'll let Chris introduce himself.
Thanks, Emily. So as Emily mentioned, I work with her on the Managed Services team. I'm an Associate Director of the Managed Services team, and I've actually been at WordStream for 7 years, so quite a bit of experience, not just in marketing, but specifically for addiction rehabilitation as well. And I've been present throughout the industry shifts that we've seen, the LegitScript certification process, as well as other updates via HIPAA. I'm also a very passionate PC gamer and builder. I can often be found playing video games or helping out my friends build computers. And I love all things related to sports, tech, and travel. So I'm often keeping up on the latest tech trends or watching any type of football, baseball, hockey game. Now that the introductions are out of the way, I'm going to get to some of the actual content here. First and foremost, why advertise?
So Chris, online advertising is really just one way to showcase your brand. And for us, we think about it every day, and we might neglect to think about some of the other advertising strategies that can come into play, especially in the addiction treatment space. You know, it's important to have a well-rounded advertising strategy. So not just relying on one single channel to produce results. Search is critical, obviously, because it helps people find you when they need you and when they have intent to become a client or a patient. Whereas some of these other channels on the screen are great for generating brand awareness and brand recall later at a time when potential customers might not find themselves in that moment of urgent need. Another reason that's very important for online advertising is that rankings matter. Specifically, advertising on search is paramount for a few reasons beyond just capturing intent when it's taking place. The SEO landscape is changing quite a bit. It's increasingly more difficult to rank at the top of a page and can sometimes take 6 or more months of effort to see measurable change. And this typically requires development effort. So search in general, whether it's paid or organic, is highly competitive. But if you notice, in this very boiled down example, the ads are dominating the page real estate. And in this real world example on the next slide, you'll see clear as day on my 21-inch monitor, I've searched for drug rehabilitation near me, and the first 4 results are ads. You know, it's really difficult for an organic result to pop up above these ads. So it's very important that you take into consideration the fact that really advertising is where the most visibility lies. And I'll kick this next one off to Chris.
There we go. Technical difficulty for a second. One of the big reasons we want to cover this is competition is high. Anybody who's really advertised in this space before, especially now post these changes we've talked about, knows this. And WordStream has some of our own data here to back that up. Looking at the above the fold line of search and below the fold line of display, you can see that light blue or sky blue line for drug and alcohol rehab and treatment is one of the most expensive display clicks and the most expensive search click on average. So when we talk about advertising, following these best practices is going to be crucial to your success and making sure that you're actively working with your accounts to continue the success once you've started to see the results you're looking for. First and foremost, mobile is critical to your success in everything advertising at this point, not just paid search or digital marketing in general. And the reason is pretty simple. When we look at the ads, 90% of or more of the searches on Google on a daily, weekly, monthly basis are coming from a mobile device. So it's not even close. Mobile blows tablets and desktops out of the water, and we need to make sure that we're designing, so to speak, our structure, our campaigns, our mindset with this mobile dominance at the forefront of our strategy. It's even more prevalent on Facebook, where 96% of Facebook usage came from smartphones in 2019. Again, just reiterating how important mobile is and how far it's really come in the last 5 years in terms of market share and development. Here you can see an example why. Mobile is really focusing on ads first and foremost. And this is an actual screenshot of what it looks like, drug rehab, drug rehabilitation near me. And much like that desktop screenshot earlier, you can see everything is an ad to the point that you only see 2 full ads on the screen and the top of that 3rd ad before you have to actually start scrolling. And when you think about users, in particular users in need of some type of help or looking for help for a loved one, they're probably going to click on one of these first 2 or 3 ads before they even make it to the organic search results. So making sure that we have not only relevant ads, but ads that are showing in the positions necessary is important. Going into some of the best practices now, we're going to get a little more detailed. First and foremost is your structure. So in this example, we have a search account in particular, or a search campaign, where we're structuring with small, tight-knit ad groups, really leveraging all the settings and features available to us within Google and Bing, the primary 2 search networks, but making sure that we don't have massive campaigns in the sense of the number of keywords or ad groups. Google really rewards relevancy as well as Bing ads. And if you're irrelevant in the sense of having 20, 30, 40 keywords that aren't closely related in one ad group and ads that don't tie into those keywords, meaning they're not using the keyword in the ad itself, you're actually going to hurt your relevancy rankings and metrics within Google and end up paying a little bit more at Bing as well. One of the best ways to ensure that you have a relevant ad is not only to leverage this relevant and tight-knit search structure, but to use new ad formats. In particular, Google actively rewards advertisers for using their newest ad formats and actively detracts advertisers who are not, with the newest ad format being what you see on the slide here, a responsive search ad. Now, this ad is probably the first of many to come where we're actually applying Google's own machine learning and artificial intelligence in the ad itself. And you can see in the example on the right side, we're able to upload up to 15 different headlines, so those blue links at the top of your ad that you see, and up to 2 to 4 different descriptions, so the actual black text you would see in the ad. And then we let Google make the combination it feels is going to be most relevant to that user and get that user to click on the ad, whether it's the example where they have headlines 3, 1, and 6 in use, or something else where it might be headlines 4, 2, and 8. We're really just letting Google use its own machine learning and artificial intelligence, as well as the vast treasure troves of user data that it has access to figure this out. And those of you who have been in advertising for many years, like myself, might remember the days where we had to do this manually. We would have to upload 3, 4, 5 ads with one tweak to each ad and test those ads to figure out which one's going to work better, whether it was a change in the headline, a change in the landing page URL, whatever that might be. And Google is really allowing us to put this into one singular ad now and test it out within that ad to get these combinations that we know are going to work and work well. And to the point earlier with structure, and the word you're going to hear me say the most, relevancy, we want to be targeted and relevant. I can't emphasize this enough, and that's why I've almost reiterated it on this slide. You need to have as relevant of an ad as possible, because Google is going to reward you, but more importantly, you want to capture that ad click. And as we've shown you in the previous examples of the desktop and mobile page, it's a very competitive space, especially because in the world of advertising, ads are always going to show first. Google gets their money, almost 90% of their revenue at some points in the quarter, from Google ads. So those ads are always going to have a higher importance for Google and show above the organic listing. So even though, like Emily mentioned, SEO is important, SEO also takes a long time to see results and will never be as important in Google's eyes as these ads that actually generate them revenue. So we need to make sure that we keep this in mind and have as relevant of a structure and target as possible. For example, if someone searches alcohol addiction treatment, I don't want to show them a generic ad that mentions alcohol addiction treatment as one of 5 service offers in the ad and doesn't speak to the service offer specifically or the benefits that you as the treatment provider offer them. What I would want to do is have an ad that mentions alcohol addiction treatment and then speaks to the service offerings that you have, as well as some of the potential benefits or impacts, rather than again, having that generic ad that seems very high level and doesn't necessarily speak to the user in the sense of drawing their attention to the ad and then furthermore getting that click. And when we say targeted, we really mean targeted. So when we talk keywords, think long tail, like Chinese dragon long in this example, where that lime green is almost where you don't want to be, and that yellow piece is where you want to be in terms of keyword length. And to further reiterate and emphasize that point, here's a good example based on intent. So we know somebody who's searching for one word, like trainers in this example, is going to have a high cost in competition because there are so many keywords and match types that could trigger an ad for various advertisers. And we know there's a low intent. Somebody who's searching just trainers has likely not even started their research, doesn't know what brand they need, what type of sneaker or shoe they need, and is not likely to make an immediate purchase. Whereas the counterpoint, Adidas Yeezy Boost trainers, somebody making this search knows exactly what they want. They've done the research, they know what they want, they might just have to pick the color, but they're ready to make that purchase because they've told us through how they're searching, the intent is there, they know what they're looking for, and they're going to make that purchase now or in the almost immediate future. And with alcohol and addiction treatment, we need to make sure that we are leveraging these because both the expensive nature of the cost per click, we're going to get some benefits, cheaper cost per clicks with longer tail keywords from less competition, but more importantly, again, to hammer the point home, these are much more relevant and intent and need-based searches, so they are more likely to generate a click and actually generate a lead or conversion as well. And it seems a little counterintuitive, but don't fear broad match. Unlike traditional industries in alcohol addiction treatment and rehab, as well as drug addiction treatment and rehab, broad match is viewed as the match type with the most search volume behind it, much like the traditional industries. However, because of the nature of broad match, we want to leverage it more. Unlike almost every other major industry where broad match is seen as a big potential driver of wasted spend, due to the restrictive nature of addiction treatment and rehabilitation service advertising within Google and Microsoft specifically, but Facebook as well, broad match can be and often is our friend. And to emphasize that point, one of WordStream's previous studies yielded some unexpected results when we broke it out by match type. In this industry, we saw that broad match actually had fewer restrictions, aka a higher visibility, meaning more ads were eligible to be shown with broad match keywords than their phrase and exact match counterparts. So although phrase and exact match are still higher quality match types in the sense of intent and likelihood of converting, broad match is going to have a further reach. And again, unlike traditional industries, we need to capitalize on this because we know between the change to certification, now requiring a LegitScript certification, and some of the changes to ad eligible impressions from the HIPAA updates, users are no longer seeing as many ads as they're eligible for. Really, Google's just showing people ads if Google has a feeling or data that says this is actually somebody in need and searching for help for themselves or a loved one, not just making a generalized search. Search trends also evolve over time. So one of the immediate impacts we found in the same study is that, about 15% of the keywords have never been searched before. And as these changes started to take effect, this was really emphasized. So over a short period, September through December 2017, which is where this data set's from, as these restrictions started to take place during this time frame, users almost instantaneously adapted and changed how they searched. And the data here shows that, where treatment keywords, addiction, recovery keywords started to drop off, counseling keywords started to skyrocket because users were now seeing more ads for these searches rather than the previous searches they were using before, such as detox or recovery. And as they started to see more ads, users, being smart, realized this and their trends evolved. So within this short time frame, we saw a massive uptick in this example, counseling keywords. And this is important for you to know because users are always going to be reactionary to the changes Google, Microsoft, and Facebook are making. And if you're not keeping up with these changes, you're already falling behind the competition. And as we've emphasized before, because of the competitive nature of this industry, that means you're falling very far behind and potentially hurting your overall future performance. As Emily covered already, mobile is a growing area of importance, and it is really just king. It's the market share leader, and it absolutely dominates the device market share. And now you're probably asking yourself, how should addiction treatment and rehabilitation advertisers leverage mobile to get the most out of it? Well, on top of making sure you have a quickly loading mobile website, so not just mobile friendly, but a quickly loading mobile website, you should also be leveraging the numerous options mobile targeting has to generate phone calls, the most valuable lead type in this industry. And it's pretty simple once you start to think about it. Users who click in through a desktop are going to have what we call barriers to entry, meaning they're going to have to click the ad, go to the landing page, click around the landing page potentially if we didn't send them to a proper landing page with a form fill, and then submit that form fill. Quite a few steps involved there, and as this example notes, that's why conversion rates exist. That's why 3% conversion rate in this example might be what you would expect on average, meaning you're converting 3% of those users that clicked into the website. Whereas mobile conversion funnel, if they're calling directly from that mobile phone, they're seeing the ad, they click the ad, they're now calling the business directly from that ad click. You're capturing their information as soon as you pick up the phone, rather than hoping they submit a form and losing potentially 97% in this example of those users that clicked on the ad but haven't filled out that form yet. While call extensions are a great tool to generate leads, there is also an additional ad type called call-only ads, which is a more powerful mobile tool. Call extensions will show on any text ad on a mobile device, but they're not prominently featured. It's more like a suggestion. Hey, you can also call this advertiser from this ad or click into the landing page. However, with call-only ads, all the user can do is call you directly. There is no landing page or website associated with the ad in the sense they can't click the ad to go there. Even though your website domain will still show, the user clicks the ad, they're now calling you. That's the only option they have to leverage. So you can imagine this is an incredibly powerful tool in this industry because you're often reaching users at the time they're admitting to themselves they need help or at the time their loved ones are actually seeking help for them. And it makes sense. If somebody's searching for treatment or rehabilitation services, they've come to the conclusion that they need help fighting whatever they're fighting right now and dealing with the issues that are coming from it. So we're able to leverage these call-only ads to connect with those users at the precise moment when we need to as the advertiser and treatment provider, rather than, again, having them fill out the form, maybe reaching back a day or two later, and they've either found somebody else or we can't get a hold of them. Now I'm going to turn it over to Emily, and she's going to talk about what to avoid.
Great, thanks, Chris. So you hit on some really interesting points in all of that content, just talking about how to reach people at the exact moment that they need you, staying as relevant as possible. And with all of these best practices come some kind of anti-best practices. So I'm going to go through a few things to avoid, some common missteps that we see specifically in this industry that can lead you to either policy issues with Google, potential disapprovals of your ads, even suspension of your ad account altogether. So this should hopefully help you avoid some of those common missteps if you're just getting started with advertising or if you're currently advertising right now. The first misstep that I see often is the idea that addiction treatment facilities can use this tactic called remarketing. If you're not familiar with remarketing, it's the type of ads that sort of follow you around once you've been to a certain website. And remarketing audiences fall into a category called personalized advertising. And among several other industries, Google's policies prohibit health and medical companies from using personalized advertising, Facebook policies as well. So unfortunately, addiction treatment centers cannot leverage this advertising tactic. Some obvious reasons for this policy include the fact that you're reminding a struggling individual or their family or loved ones about a sensitive matter and a personal hardship in their lives. This is the same reason that personal injury lawyers, for example, cannot remarket their specific services to potential clients who have already visited their website and chosen not to fill out their form or give them a phone call. This is hard written into Google, Microsoft, and Facebook's policies, and you really have potentially only one opportunity to capture your searcher's attention, which is why following all the best practices that Chris mentioned and that we've outlined thus far is so important. Using things like responsive search ads, leveraging some of that personalized ad formatting is a great way to sort of get around the need to even remarket, since advertisers in this space can't leverage it to begin with. Another common misstep that I've seen is the use of what's called a custom audience. Beware of audience types in Google, Microsoft, or Facebook that take a user's search history or behavior into account. Most of Google's intent or affinity-based audiences fall into the category of personalized advertising, as well as the remarketing audiences. So not just looking at people who have visited your website but haven't made a conversion, but also folks who have search history or behavior that indicates they'd be interested in this type of service. So Google has all these different audience types that you can layer into the search campaigns. Ones like custom affinity or in-market audiences, even custom intent for display and video. They also have demographic audiences and many more. And these are useful for cases where an advertiser wants to bid more for users who have a certain affinity or interest in their products and services, since they're more likely to become a customer. Beauty products being a great example. But when it comes to the health, medical, and addiction treatment space, these types of audiences are prohibited. The next thing to avoid are overly generic keywords. And this is kind of an anti-best practice, just calling to what Chris had mentioned earlier about being as specific and relevant as possible. So using overly generic keywords like, in any sense, single word keywords like addiction, alcoholism, a word or a term like substance abuse or treatment. These are overly generic, especially if they're sitting on broad match, and they're going to give you limited to no visibility because they don't signal intent. And because of all the reasons earlier that were mentioned around restrictions for these specific advertisers and HIPAA, it makes your ads extremely unlikely to show for terms like these. So for example, the word treatment in this case does not signal that the searcher or their loved one is struggling with addiction. It could have thousands of different interpretations. So as specific as you can be in your keywords, the more likely they are to show for the right person at the right time. If you're already advertising on Google or Microsoft for search and your account contains any keywords that look like this, I'd recommend taking a second look to evaluate their performance and then look through your search terms. So look through what people were actually searching for when they found your business to find long tail, more specific keywords that will help improve your visibility and target the appropriate level of intent. The next common sort of misstep that I see or mistake in accounts are text ads that are non-specific. So, Leslie made some good points earlier about the approval process and how when they're looking at a business, they're looking at how they market themselves externally. So they're looking for any kind of misleading content. We follow that same practice when we're advertising on Google. This text ad has a multitude of issues. When it comes to advertising for addiction treatment facilities, your ad should be as close of a match to that keyword search term as possible and should not make any misleading or broad claims. So this ad has terms like end your struggle, improve your life. They're not specific enough, and these are likely, an ad like this would be likely to be disapproved. And if it passes through the approval process for some reason, it will have extremely limited to no visibility. This ad, for example, is much more in line with best practices and will have a higher likelihood to show for those high intent searches. So this ad is much more compliant, meets best practices, and it's a lot more straightforward about the business. So keeping your ads as specific as possible for a search is very important. If somebody is searching treatment for addiction, the best way to guarantee visibility and then that final click itself is to give the user exactly what they are searching for without any fluff or any broad statements about the perceived outcome of addiction treatment or about any kind of broad benefit statements. This ad should be informative about the areas that you serve, specifically, the geos that you serve, your availability to take in their calls or to take them in as a patient, and the specific services you offer that are relevant to what they searched. In the same vein, talking about the ads themselves and thinking about personalized advertising for a second, Facebook ads for addiction treatment can also not outright make assumptions about the user to advertise their services. One big mistake I've seen advertisers in restricted channels make is the use of the word you in the ads. It's figuratively pointing the finger at that user at a moment in time that they are not seeking treatment or they're not searching for help from you. It may not even be a person who's struggling at all, and it's calling them out. Facebook will more than likely disapprove these ads that you're seeing on the screen before they ever have the chance to serve, because they use the word you or your, and because you're in a space like addiction treatment that's already labeled as a sensitive category. This is kind of an anti-best practice here. So think about this. It's the first touch point with a user. The person may be seeing this ad and they may not be an addict themselves. They may be a friend or a loved one of a person who needs treatment, and there's an ad in their feed specifically targeting them as though they are struggling. Or on the right-hand side, it may be calling to another personal hardship that they may not want to be reminded of when they're scrolling through Facebook. So let's look at an ad that meets best practices for a social platform like Facebook. This ad meets best practices because it's not speaking directly to the user in a personalized manner. It's not assuming anything about them. It's a much more flat statement about specifically, again, where you serve, so the location that you're based out of and the geos that you serve, and the services available, with a very simple call to action to contact you. And the last anti-best practice or strategy to avoid is competitor search campaigns. So this is a very common practice in many other industries and is technically allowed in Google search. So in Google, many advertisers will strategically run these competitor campaigns because it's a useful way to bring in additional traffic from searchers who are looking for products and services that are akin to your own. However, with addiction treatment advertising, there are some precautions that you need to take into account before going and running a competitor search campaign. The first being a Microsoft search. I've typically seen that competitor keywords will just be disapproved outright. So we don't recommend running these because having any kind of disapproved keywords or ads in your account, if they stack over time, can lead to account suspension. If you're auto-syncing your campaigns from Google Ads to Microsoft, which is a common best practice, just ensure that you're unchecking that competitor campaign. Other thing to keep in mind, in Google since 2008, they have given advertisers the ability to run these campaigns, but there are some exceptions. There are times when it's a poor idea, even if there's nothing in the advertising policy that says you can't. For example, advertising costs for law-related terms in some cities are upwards of $200 a click, and competing law firms bidding on each other's brand names can lead to serious bidding wars with high waste in the accounts as an unintended result, and it can also result in low reputability for that specific business or firm. Another thing to keep in mind is that there are certain locales that have specific regulation around competitor campaigns that aren't applicable at a nationwide level. So for example, it's actually illegal to bid on your competitors' brand names if you're a law firm in the state of North Carolina specifically. So ensure that you're staying compliant, especially if you have specific agreements in place with any of your local competitors. And the other risk that I mentioned kind of earlier is that you can run into a bidding war, which will raise your overall costs, potentially generate a lot of wasted spend in your accounts. So it's really important to just understand the risks that you're taking on before you go and start bidding on your competitors' brand names. So as far as anti-best practices go, Chris gave us some good practices to follow. I gave you some things to avoid. That kind of rounds out WordStream's piece of the advertising best practices. And now I think I will pass things back over to Maggie.
All right, thanks guys so much. That was tons of great information. So really quick before we get into questions, for everybody on the line, if you're interested in speaking with experts from either WordStream or LegitScript or both, please take us up on this offer, which is on your screen now. So feel free to hit yes on your screen right now. WordStream will provide you with a totally free call with one of our certified Google Ads experts who can do an individualized account analysis of all of your online campaigns. And LegitScript is also happy to offer more information about the process of getting your business certified to advertise online. And of course, feel free to hit the third button to take advantage of both of these offers from WordStream and LegitScript. So just don't forget to answer the poll that's on your screen here, and I will leave this up as we go to questions. So while you guys are answering that, we're going to jump into some questions. Questions have been rolling in a little bit, but feel free to add them in your chat box now. Okay, so I will kind of direct the questions at both WordStream and LegitScript, but as always, like all the experts on the line now, feel free to kind of jump in wherever you have any advice. So to kick it off, this is kind of a WordStream related question, but somebody was asking, we've definitely learned in this webinar that drug and rehab facility advertising is so competitive. So if you don't have the budget to be testing a lot, sort of playing around in your account, what are kind of like the top areas that you can work on without needing a huge budget?
Yeah, this is Chris. I think I can take that. So first and foremost, you'd want to be making sure you're protecting your own brand name. As Emily mentioned, although competitor campaigns are not recommended, there are still certainly advertisers that would try and run them. So if somebody's searching your brand, you'd want to have your own ad show first. After that, really just focus on the core area that you're looking for, either the area you have the most counselors and available beds for, or maybe you're just a one-type specialist service. Focus on those types of keywords rather than a large variety. So if all I offer is alcohol addiction treatment and rehabilitation, I want to focus on only those keywords and maybe not go after drug-related keywords like drug rehabilitation or drug detox.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Chris. So this is geared a little bit towards LegitScript. So somebody was asking if I try to get certified with LegitScript and it gets approved, and then I accidentally later on have something that disqualifies my business. Things are always changing, rules and regulations are changing. So if that ends up happening, and so then I was certified and I get disqualified, is there a way that I can quickly reapply, or sort of how does that work?
Yeah, that's actually a really great question. This is Caitlin. So part of our certification program is ongoing monitoring. So throughout the year after someone is certified, before their year is up and renewal happens, there's actually ongoing monitoring where a designated analyst will reach out regularly for updated documentation, communication around any changed laws or regulations, and if there's any changes on the treatment center or the treatment merchant's end, they will just need to let us know about those changes, and then they'll have back and forth communication with that analyst to make sure that they remain in compliance and that they don't lose that certified status, and we'll work with them the best that we can.
Great, thanks, Caitlin. Okay, so somebody else was asking, so I've gotten certified by LegitScript. What is kind of the first #1 action item that I can do after getting certified? I went through that whole process and now I'm all ready to advertise online. I'm pumped about it. I'm ready to kind of start playing around in my campaigns. What's sort of like #1 first thing I should go for?
I can take that. #1 thing that you want to do once you're ready to get started on advertising is obviously, aside from getting those accounts set up, so getting a Google account, getting a Microsoft account, or a Facebook account, is actually configuring the conversion tracking. So whatever is an actionable, or a valuable action on your website, whether it be a phone call or a form fill or some other type of web chat, make sure that you get the actual tracking for that set up, because that is how you're going to optimize your campaigns in these platforms going forward. There's no way to actually optimize your budget if you don't know what's working and what's not.
Great, thanks, Emily. Okay, so this is kind of a great question really for everybody, so feel free to jump in however you all see fit. But so LegitScript spoke a lot about that idea of trust. So for all of you guys on the line, what do you really recommend to show audience for trust other than being certified? Do you have some examples? Maybe LegitScript might have some, but WordStream might as well. But examples of some of the best advertisers that have come through, that LegitScript you guys might have seen that you certified right away, or WordStream, some great campaigns you've seen. How do you really see that people have created and built that trust?
Sure. I could start off, or Chris, would you like to take a few and I'll fill in any gaps?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, since as Emily noted during the presentation, it's incredibly difficult to leverage, or impossible in some cases, personalized advertising. Building trust really needs to take place on the website or over the phone. Within the ads themselves, there's only so much we can do around personalization and building trust at that level. So it's really crucially important to leverage your website, whether it's having your LegitScript certification showing front and center, testimonials or case studies, success stories you might have had. Build that trust on the website itself.
Totally agree. I think it's just important for that whole journey to be kind of building trust incrementally as you go. So going from the actual search, so what they typed into Google, to the ad really matching that search well, all the way to that landing page experience, matching what they were expecting to see out of that ad is going to be really important.
Okay.
And this is luckily with LegitScript. A couple things just immediately came to mind with that question I just wanted to briefly touch on. Kind of getting at the idea of transparency and disclosure. I think just being very clear again about what services you offer. We've seen some advertisers who transparently display their licensure information in the jurisdictions they're operating, so that information a savvy consumer could independently verify their licensure status. And then along the same lines, when there are claims or success rates, that kind of thing, providing some context around that so that they're not sitting there in isolation, so that people can kind of independently evaluate that outcomes data on their own as well.
Awesome. Thank you guys all so much. So I think we have time for about one more question. Somebody wrote in saying, phone calls are my best source of leads. How do I make sure that somebody calls me rather than emailing or filling out my form?
It's a great question. And, Chris's best practices touched on this briefly, just talking about, placing more importance or more budget toward those call-only ads. If that's really the action that you want your user to take, rest assured that a good chunk, if not the majority of your traffic, is going to come from mobile devices anyway. So make sure that you're not only trying out a call-only ad, but for your search ads, for any text-based ads, add in what's called a call extension. It's a small snippet that's going to show underneath your text ad as part of it, and you've probably seen this when you Google local businesses. It will allow somebody to call you directly from the ad. And then third step would be just making sure that your website itself is really catered to having somebody call you on the phone. So make that phone number really prominent on every single page of the website. And if you would kind of rather have them call than fill out a contact form, have the contact form be a little bit more subdued.
Adding in as well, Emily had some great examples of example ads for example rehab company, where she predominantly showed that call action in the ad. So not just using the call only ad format or the call extension, but even ads that are going to be your generic, so to speak, text ads, not that specific call format. Have call in the headlines, say call 24/7. Our phones are open 24/7 for your support, or whatever your hours might be, to really encourage that user to call throughout the process. When they see the ad, if they click the ad and go to the landing page, as Emily mentioned, have that phone number present and easily able to be called.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. So we still have a couple questions rolling through, but I think this is a great place to stop. If you submitted a question in the chat box and it wasn't answered, we are going to be sending these questions off to both LegitScript and WordStream experts. So we will get back to you with those answers. Again, don't forget to sign up right now to chat with an expert about your account or to chat about getting certified or both. I would just want to say a huge thank you to our friends at LegitScript for the awesome information, to our experts here at WordStream, and to all of you on the line for listening. We will see you next time. Thanks.